Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a movie that was a bit of a surprise. This was a patron request from a new patron, Twan Strong, who asked me to take a look at the 2014 movie, Exists. And I gotta be honest, my heart sank a little bit when he explained why. I had no information about what Exists was, and when he mentioned that it was a surprise to him, and it was also the best Bigfoot movie he's seen, oofed. I have some interesting relationships with the notion of Bigfoot films, and for the most part, the quality does tend to skew one particular way that didn't have me looking forward to watching another one. But lo and behold, although this won't wind up in the hallways of greatest cinema ever, I do think that this was a surprisingly enjoyable watch, especially for what it was. Written and directed by Eduardo Sanchez, yes, that Eduardo Sanchez, the filmmaker behind the Blair Witch Project and a segment of VHS2, so on and so forth. He continues on with the found footage format and tackles this time our Sasquatch friends. And this all shakes out when a group of friends decide to all head out to a remote cabin belonging to one of their uncles, of course on a long dirt road, and of course with no cell service, and of course with no park ranger. And once they arrive at the decrepit cabin, decrepit of course, and they have a little bit of summertime fun, they soon find themselves terrorized by an unseen foe. This leads to a lot of the found footage aspects of this when they set up multiple GoPros, cameras all around and so forth, and they actually start to capture the entity that is terrorizing them. Now, I'm going to have to go ahead and somewhat agree and somewhat disagree with Twan here. I don't think that this is the best Bigfoot movie I've seen, but I do think it is the best Bigfoot horror movie I've seen. I do want to make that qualifier because it's going to be hard-pressed for any film to top Harry and the Hendersons.
Go! Go!
But usually when we're talking about horror Bigfoot films, my mind goes to movies like Terror at Bigfoot Pond.
Kelly? Kelly?
Kelly, it's us. Kelly.
Which was just an atrocious abomination of anything approaching any cinematic merit. So it is with an honest statement, but a little bit of a qualifier that this is indeed the best Bigfoot horror movie I've seen. And that qualifier that I want to add, just that little asterisk on the word best, just kind of bear in mind the level of expectations and previous entries that kind of set that bar for this one to hop over a little bit. This does fall into some very, very well-worn tropes. The main characters of this film are oftentimes grating, and infighting with one another is very just simplistic and superficial, and when they get into the realm of needing to work together to survive, there's the falling outs that happen there. It's a lot of the paint-by-numbers aspects of normal found footage movies, even though I do have to admit that Eduardo Sanchez really did kind of not create the genre, but he did reinvent it into what he is currently working with in this. You can't really look at Norman Rockwell's 15th painting and legitimately criticize it for looking like a Norman Rockwell. This is an Eduardo Sanchez film. It looks and feels like an Eduardo Sanchez film. But taking that for what it is, I have to admit that although there are the superficial and well-worn found footage tropes that have been exhausted by this point, it also brings the heart and the interesting aspects of his filming style to the table in this movie. There are some genuinely surprisingly good jump scares happening here, not to mention the creature effects are not too bad. And moreover, more than anything else I have to say that kind of elevated this movie into something that I would say was surprisingly decent is the thoughtfulness that they gave to the storyline. This isn't just teenagers that are getting harassed and terrorized by an entity that's killing them off one by one. There's more to it than that. There's more of the survivalistic aspect of that. There's more of the antagonist storyline that's happening with that. And that was the point that kind of surprised me more than anything else by the time the end credits rolled. It had me kind of reflecting on the movie and thinking, well, that sure was something that I just didn't expect. I think there really is, if I had to be completely honest about this, a certain aspect of this film where my expectations were so low to start with, just based on my experience with these kind of movies before, that anything even approaching mediocrity would still be heads and tails above what I was thinking would be happening. So the fact that I got actually above mediocrity, again, not great, but decently good was a huge surprise, and a pleasant one. And I think that there's also an element in play as far as things that work against Bigfoot films for me is not necessarily bias, but maybe a sway, is for a film to really resonate with me, a horror film especially, I think it really does have to kind of latch on to some fundamental aspects of my soul and my spirit and, dare I say, my belief system. And at the risk of alienating a lot of viewers here, I have to admit that in my belief system, there's not a lot of room for Bigfoot or cryptozoology of any kind, to be perfectly honest. I very much follow that mantra of I keep an open mind. I am willing to hear evidence. I am not going to dismiss it outright, but that Carl Sagan quote of extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence is very much front and center for me. A footprint in the mud and a plaster cast does not quite cut it. In fact, I have to say that my best experience with the notion of Bigfoot and so forth was driving up the Pacific Coast Trail and hitting up into the Redwood Mountains, all those wonderful little touristy stops about Bigfoot. It's a delight, and I recommend anybody that's wanting to go on a vacation to swing on up there and take a look around, because it really is kitschy fun. But kitschy fun doesn't necessarily make for a good horror movie antagonist, but I am still pleased to announce that Exists provides above and beyond what my expectations were to deliver a solid quality found footage movie with a terrifying creature. And so on that note, thank you, Twan, for bringing this one to my attention. I almost guarantee I probably never would have pressed play on it had it not been for your recommendation. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that I did. So thank you very much, and thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you on my next review. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.